The first encounter. The stars glimmered in the dark expanse of space as the alien fleet approached Earth. These beings had traveled far across the galaxy to conquer this small blue planet. The fleet was massive, filled with ships that could destroy entire cities with a single blow. Their technology was far beyond anything humans had ever dreamed of. They were confident that the Earth would fall to their might, just like the many other worlds they had conquered before. At the helm of the alien fleet was Commander Zorath, a tall and imposing figure. His species, the Vrix, had been conquering planets for centuries. Their eyes were cold and calculating, their bodies strong and built for war. They had never met a species that could stand against them, and they didn't believe Earth would be any different. Zorath's voice echoed through the command center of his flagship. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered, his tone confident and dismissive. "Tell them to surrender now. We will give them a choice, submit or be destroyed." The message was sent across the stars, and within hours it reached Earth. The alien fleet, now positioned in orbit around the planet, waited, expecting a quick and easy victory. Humans had always been weak, Zorath believed. They would panic. They would beg for mercy. The Vrix had faced many species in the past, and Earth's primitive technology would be no match for them. Back on Earth, the response was anything but what Zorath expected. In a small military base in the United States, General Michael Carter stood at the head of a war room table. His eyes narrowed as he read the alien message. The room was filled with high-ranking military officers, all of them tense, but none of them panicking. They had trained for this moment, knowing it was only a matter of time before Earth would face a threat from the stars. General Carter stood tall, his voice calm and steady as he addressed his team. "We will not surrender. We will fight. Our planet is not for the taking." The officers around him nodded in agreement. It wasn't the first time humanity had faced a crisis, and it wouldn't be the last. They had fought wars before, wars against other nations, against tyranny, and against impossible odds. They knew how to stand their ground. They knew how to fight back. As the days passed, the Vrix fleet began to make their move. Zorath watched the humans closely, expecting them to crumble under the pressure. But something strange happened. The humans didn't seem afraid. They didn't beg. They didn't cower. Instead, they began to prepare for war. On Earth, General Carter and his team began making decisions that shocked even their own military. They called up reserves, activated hidden defense systems, and even started building makeshift weapons with materials that the aliens wouldn't expect. The Vrix had underestimated the humans. They thought Earth's military was outdated and weak, but they didn't realize that humans had something far more dangerous than advanced technology: determination. Zorath was puzzled. His intelligence officers reported that the humans had started mobilizing, but they didn't see any signs of fear or desperation. The humans weren't acting like a species about to be wiped out. They were acting like they were preparing for a fight, one that they intended to win. "What are they doing?" Zorath muttered to himself, his mind racing. "They have no chance against us. Their weapons are nothing compared to ours." Yet, as the alien ships hovered in the Earth's orbit, they couldn't help but notice something strange. The humans had already begun to adapt. Where the aliens expected cities to be in ruins, they found makeshift fortifications. Where they thought the air would be quiet, they heard the hum of planes in the sky, but not like the ones they had expected. The humans were working quickly, using what little they had to prepare for battle. Zorath's second-in-command, a Vrix named Val, stepped forward. "Commander, the humans are acting in a way we didn't expect. They're preparing for war, but they don't seem to fear us." Zorath's eyes narrowed. "What is it that makes them so confident?" he asked. "How can they be so fearless?" The thought bothered him. Fear was a weapon. It was something that worked on every species they had encountered. Fear could break an army. Fear could make even the strongest cower. But the humans, there was something different about them. They didn't seem afraid at all. Back on Earth, General Carter made his first move. He issued a broadcast to the world, his voice steady but filled with a quiet strength. To the people of Earth, we are facing an invasion from a powerful alien race. They are here to destroy us, to take our planet. But we will not go down without a fight. We will fight for our homes, for our families, and for our future. His words resonated across the globe. People everywhere, rich and poor, old and young, civilians and soldiers, united in a way that had never been seen before. They might not have the same technology as the Vrix, but they had something far more powerful: unity. The alien fleet hovered above Earth, waiting. They were used to seeing their enemies break under pressure, but humanity was standing strong. And that confused them. It didn't make sense. As the days passed, Zorath and his fleet began to realize something that shook them to their core. They had underestimated humanity. The Vrix had thought that Earth was just another easy conquest. But now they weren't so sure, and in the quiet, tension-filled moments that followed, they began to fear that this might not be the easy victory they had expected. The first battle for Earth was about to begin, and the aliens had no idea what they were in for. A deadly plan. The alien fleet hovered above Earth, casting long, menacing shadows over the planet below. Zorath stood in the command center of his flagship, his mind churning. He had expected the humans to panic, to beg for mercy. Instead, they had rallied together, showing a resilience that no one had anticipated. He couldn't understand it. How could such a primitive species, one that had never faced a real war in space, act with such confidence? "Prepare for the first strike," Zorath ordered, his voice cold and resolute. "We will show them what happens to those who challenge us." The Vrix fleet surged forward, massive ships cutting through space toward Earth, their weapons primed and ready. They unleashed a barrage of energy beams at Earth's major cities: New York, Beijing, Moscow. But the moment the first blast hit, the unexpected happened. Instead of crumbling under the assault, the cities fought back. Human ingenuity kicked in. The military had long since adapted to worst-case scenarios, developing countermeasures for alien weapons. Earth's defenses, scattered and underfunded, were no match for the advanced alien technology, but humans were not without their tricks. In the middle of the attack, the first of Earth's unexpected surprises came. A fleet of fighter jets, modified with scavenged alien tech, swarmed toward the alien ships. These planes were nothing like the fragile, old-fashioned crafts the Vrix had imagined. They were fast, agile, and more dangerous than the Vrix had expected. General Carter had given the order to fight back, and Earth's pilots were determined to make every shot count. They launched a series of missiles that, although nowhere near as advanced as the aliens' weapons, caught the Vrix off guard. With every missile that hit its target, a ripple of doubt spread through the alien ranks. "How are they doing this?" Zorath growled, watching the display on the monitor. His ships were damaged, but the damage wasn't what shocked him. It was the humans' boldness, their relentless drive to keep fighting. Every time he thought they would retreat, they surged forward with greater determination. "They are fighting back harder than we expected, Commander," Val said, stepping forward with a report in hand. "They're not just defending, they're planning something." Zorath's eyes narrowed. He could see the humans' tactics, unpredictable, desperate, yet calculated. They were using their small, nimble ships to target weak points in the alien fleet. They were aware of the limitations of their weapons, but made up for it with strategy, using their environment to their advantage. On the ground, the resistance was equally unexpected. The humans didn't rely solely on advanced weapons or technology. Instead, they used their knowledge of the terrain, setting traps and ambushes for the invaders. Streets that should have been left undefended became fortified battlegrounds. Entire neighborhoods became strongholds as the military and civilians alike used everything they had to slow down the alien advance. In one particular instance, a small group of soldiers, led by Captain Jenna Morales, held off a massive Vrix assault in the outskirts of New York. Despite their outdated weaponry, they used the urban landscape to launch surprise attacks. They lured alien forces into narrow alleyways, where the Vrix' larger, clunkier suits struggled to maneuver. The humans used simple explosives, thrown from rooftops, to disable alien tanks and destroy supply lines. It wasn't enough to win the war, but it was enough to send a message to the invaders. Earth would not go down without a fight. For Zorath, this was more than just a battle. It was a challenge to his authority, a humiliation he couldn't allow. He had led his fleet to countless victories across the galaxy, conquering worlds with ease. But these humans were different. They fought like animals, like they had nothing to lose. And that terrified him. "We need to take this planet's leadership down," Zorath said, turning to his officers. "We'll target their command centers, their military hubs. If we take their leaders, the rest of the humans will scatter." But even as Zorath spoke, the humans continued to surprise him. While the Vrix were focused on Earth's military, the civilians were not simply running and hiding, they were organizing. Entire cities mobilized to provide aid, food, and weapons to the fighters. They built makeshift airfields to support their dwindling aircraft, and in the dead of night, they sabotaged alien supply lines with incredible precision. The Vrix underestimated the spirit of the people who had been pushed to the brink. They were starting to learn what it meant to face humans who had nothing left to lose. Meanwhile, General Carter had gathered his advisors for a secret meeting. He knew the aliens would come after Earth's leadership, but he also knew that there was no way to fight the full force of the Vrix with the resources at his disposal. But there was one thing he had that the aliens didn't: knowledge of their enemy. He had studied the Vrix, their technology, their behavior, and he knew that their overconfidence could be their downfall. "We need to take the fight to them," Carter said, looking around the table. "We have to hit them where it hurts. If we can get close enough, we can disable their communication systems, take out their leaders." The plan was risky, but it was the only chance they had. A small, specially trained team would infiltrate the alien flagship, using the chaos to plant explosives in the heart of their fleet. It was a long shot, but the fate of Earth depended on it. As the team prepared to launch their daring mission, the humans on Earth continued to fight. They had learned something valuable. The aliens were not invincible. They were vulnerable. They weren't just facing an enemy, they were facing an empire that had forgotten what it was like to lose. And that, Zorath would soon discover, was their greatest mistake. Humans strike back. The alien fleet had already struck Earth's largest cities, yet despite the destruction, humans refused to bend. Their cities smoldered, but their spirits were not broken. Commander Zorath watched, increasingly perplexed, as every move he made to crush humanity was met with unexpected resilience. General Carter, deep in an underground command bunker, reviewed the latest reports. Earth had suffered immense losses, but the humans were not retreating. Instead, they were digging in their heels. The military had adapted to the alien threat with rapid precision, and Carter's team had discovered something no one had predicted. The Vrix weren't as invincible as they appeared. The first major breakthrough came when Earth's scientists, working in secret under military protection, managed to reverse engineer some of the Vrix tech that had been recovered from earlier skirmishes. It wasn't much, just a few fragments of alien circuitry, but it was enough to make a difference. Human engineers created a rudimentary EMP device capable of disabling the Vrix's highly advanced energy shields. A team of soldiers, led by Captain Morales, was tasked with the first strike using this new weapon. They infiltrated an alien supply base hidden in the South American jungle, where the Vrix had been storing weaponry and reinforcements. The mission was risky. Death was almost guaranteed, but Morales and her team had no choice. If they didn't stop the Vrix from bringing in more reinforcements, humanity's fight would be over. As Morales and her team crept through the jungle, using the thick undergrowth for cover, they knew the odds were stacked against them. The alien supply base was well guarded, with drones patrolling the area and the constant hum of energy shields protecting key structures. But the humans had learned something crucial. The aliens, despite their technological superiority, were not as thorough as they appeared. They had become overconfident, leaving gaps in their defense. "We strike fast and silent," Captain Morales whispered, her voice steady, though her heart raced. "Disable their shields, then destroy their weapons. We can't afford to fail." With a series of well-placed shots from their handheld EMP devices, the shields flickered and died. The alien guards, momentarily stunned, were easy targets for the human team, who swiftly moved in and incapacitated them with swift, precise attacks. For the first time, the humans had a significant advantage, a crack in the alien armor. The explosion that followed rocked the jungle as the EMP-triggered devices destroyed the Vrix weapons depot. The shockwaves sent out a warning to the Vrix fleet, but it was too late. Morales' team had accomplished the impossible. They had struck a blow against the aliens' infrastructure, leaving them reeling. Back in orbit, Zoraf's frustration reached its peak. His fleet had been expected to overwhelm the humans in days, not weeks. This unexpected strike was only the beginning. Earth's people, it seemed, were more resourceful than he had imagined. "Report," Zoraf demanded, his tone sharp. "What damage did the humans cause?" The Vrix officer before him hesitated. "Commander, the weapons depot is gone. The humans have taken out one of our largest supply caches. Several of our advanced energy cannons have been disabled." Zoraf's eyes narrowed. How had they done it? How had these primitive beings, with their outdated technology, managed to infiltrate his secure base and cause such damage? Val, ever the strategist, spoke up. "Commander, I believe they are using our own tactics against us. They are not relying on brute force. They're making smart, surgical strikes, targeting our weaknesses." Zoraf clenched his fists. "We will crush them. We cannot allow these animals to think they have a chance." But Zoraf underestimated one crucial factor: humanity's ability to adapt. As alien forces scrambled to respond to the blow, Earth's military forces were already mobilizing for the next phase of their strategy. General Carter, aware that the Vrix were now on high alert, knew it was time to escalate. Earth could not simply sit back and wait for the aliens to strike again. They needed to turn the tide. "We have their attention now," Carter said, looking at his team. "We can't waste this opportunity. It's time to push back harder." While the Vrix regrouped, human forces launched a series of coordinated assaults on alien positions across the globe. These strikes weren't meant to win the war. They were meant to keep the invaders on the defensive. Small, mobile human squads moved through forests, urban ruins, and mountains, harassing alien forces, striking supply lines, and sabotaging technology. The alien invaders, who had once considered themselves invincible, began to question their assumptions. The humans were unpredictable, like a swarm of insects that refused to be crushed. Every time they thought they had the upper hand, the humans would strike back harder, faster, and more intelligently. Zoraf stared at the tactical map, his expression grim. His fleet was growing increasingly divided, stretched thin by the constant harassment. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now it seemed like the Vrix were not the only ones with something to lose. "Send more reinforcements," Zoraf ordered. "We will show them the full might of the Vrix. We will break them." But deep down, a seed of doubt began to sprout in Zoraf's mind. Could they truly break the humans? Or had they underestimated them in a way that would lead to their ultimate downfall? The aliens had no way of knowing, but one thing was certain: the battle for Earth was just beginning, and the Vrix were far from the unstoppable force they had once believed themselves to be. As the sun set over Earth, its people, battered but unbroken, continued to fight, proving that sometimes the greatest strength isn't in technology, but in the will to survive. A glimpse of human resolve. The tide of war had shifted in subtle but undeniable ways. What began as a battle of overwhelming odds had slowly turned into something far more dangerous for the Vrix invaders. The aliens had underestimated humanity's resilience, and now they were paying the price. Zorath's fleet had suffered several unexpected setbacks. Earth's surprising ability to adapt and fight back had thrown the Vrix off balance. For every victory they claimed, the humans struck back with tenacity, exploiting weaknesses in their forces that Zorath thought were invisible. He could no longer rely on the overwhelming firepower his fleet possessed. The humans were proving that their will to survive was a weapon more potent than anything the Vrix had anticipated. But Zorath had one ace left to play, a secret weapon that could crush any remaining hope the humans had. It was called the Devastator, an experimental warship with the ability to fire an energy beam powerful enough to level entire continents. This was his final solution to Earth's resistance. He had kept the weapon hidden, waiting for the right moment to unleash it. And now, he believed, was that moment. As the alien fleet prepared for the deployment of the Devastator, General Carter was already moving forward with a bold plan of his own. Earth's people were tired, bruised, and broken from the constant onslaught, but the resolve to protect their planet had never been stronger. The attack on the alien supply base had been a turning point, a symbol of human ingenuity and defiance. But it wasn't enough, not yet. The humans needed something more, something to push them over the edge and turn the tide for good. In a top-secret research facility in the Nevada desert, Earth's brightest minds had been working tirelessly to perfect a new kind of weapon. After recovering parts of Vrix technology from previous battles, they had discovered a way to create a shield that could temporarily neutralize the Vrix's powerful energy beams. It was a long shot, but it was humanity's last chance to even the odds. Captain Jenna Morales, who had become a symbol of hope for Earth's resistance, was chosen to lead the team that would test the shield. It was risky. The energy beams from the alien warships could slice through mountains, and one wrong move could destroy their entire base. But Morales wasn't afraid. Not anymore. "I've seen worse," she said, her eyes steely with resolve. "We face death at every turn. We've got one shot at this, and I'm not going to let it slip away." The shield was a large, circular device, roughly the size of a small building. It had been integrated with both human technology and alien components, making it volatile and unstable, but also extremely powerful. If it worked, the shield would allow Earth's fighters to face the Vrix head-on, without fear of being obliterated in seconds. As the shield hummed to life, the team of engineers monitored every component, their fingers poised over control panels. The countdown began. 30 seconds, a technician called out, his voice tense. Morales turned to her team. "We're not just testing this thing, folks. We're using it to win this fight. Now, let's show the aliens what humans are capable of." The countdown hit 0, and the shield activated with a brilliant burst of light. The energy fields around it crackled, humming with power. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the first Vrix attack came. A massive energy beam shot toward them from orbit. It was blinding, so intense that it momentarily overpowered the sensors. Morales' heart raced as the beam closed in. In that split second, she realized that their lives hung in the balance. But then something extraordinary happened. The beam hit the shield and stopped. The energy rippled outward, but the shield held, absorbing the blast and rendering it useless. Morales let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. It had worked. The humans had gained a fighting chance. "We've got their attention," she said, her voice steady with the weight of their success. "Now, let's go give them hell." Back in orbit, Zorath stared in disbelief as his most powerful weapon, the one he had been certain would end the conflict, had been neutralized by a force he couldn't explain. His thoughts raced. The shield had worked in ways the Vrix hadn't predicted. The humans had once again defied all expectations. "Impossible," Zorath muttered under his breath. "They can't have developed something like that in such a short time. Their technology was never capable of this." His second-in-command, Vile, stepped forward, his eyes wide with realization. "Commander, they're evolving faster than we expected. They're adapting, learning, and overcoming every obstacle we throw at them." Zorath's anger boiled over. This was no longer just about conquering a planet. It was about pride. The humans had humiliated him. He had underestimated them, and now he could feel the balance of power beginning to shift. But Zorath was no stranger to defeat. He would fight harder. He would double down on his efforts, bring in more reinforcements, and deploy the Devastator without hesitation. He would crush these humans once and for all. But as he prepared for his next move, something strange began to happen. Across Earth, as the news of the Shield's success spread, the human resistance surged in strength. The once fragmented groups of fighters, survivors, and civilians all began to unify under a single banner. The Vrix had expected a planet of weak, divided nations, but now they faced a united Earth. Humanity's resolve had been forged in fire, and now it was unstoppable. And for the first time in this war, the aliens felt a flicker of doubt. Could they really defeat these humans? Could they break their will? The answer, Zorath feared, might not be as simple as he once believed. The battle rages. The first real victory for humanity had come at a cost, but it was one that had lit a fire in the hearts of every soldier, every civilian, every person who had stood against the Vrix. The shield had worked. The humans were now equipped to fight back with a semblance of parity. The aliens could no longer rely on their energy beams to annihilate Earth's defenses. Now, humanity had the tools to stand toe-to-toe with their would-be conquerors. Zorath watched in disbelief from his flagship as Earth's forces launched a wave of counterattacks. The humans had adapted to every setback, improving and evolving their tactics with every passing day. Where the Vrix had anticipated their crushing superiority, they now faced a planet united in its defiance. "Commander, the humans have deployed their new shield technology," Val reported, his voice tinged with irritation. "Our energy weapons are ineffective against it. Their fighters are now capable of engaging us without fear of being obliterated." Zorath slammed his fist on the control panel, his frustration mounting. "This cannot continue. We will make them pay for their defiance." Launch the Devastator. On Earth, the battle raged across every corner of the globe. Cities were reduced to rubble, and yet the humans held their ground. The human military had adopted a strategy of relentless guerrilla warfare, striking the aliens when they least expected it. From the jungles of South America to the frozen tundra of Siberia, human resistance fighters launched surgical strikes, using the terrain to their advantage. The alien forces, large and terrifying, struggled to keep up with the swift, unpredictable humans. The human pilots, now armed with better technology and the shield protection, were no longer just defending, they were hunting. Fighter jets swarmed the skies, using the Vrix's own weaknesses against them. The advanced alien warships, once unstoppable, now found themselves under attack by small, nimble Earth fighters that danced around them with agility. Captain Jenna Morales was leading a team of pilots in a high-stakes mission over the South Pacific, where a Vrix battleship had been spotted. The humans had managed to discover a small weakness in the alien ship's shields, a gap in the lower hull that had been overlooked by the invaders. If they could exploit that weakness, they could cripple the ship and send a message to Zorath that humanity would not be cowed. "Stay tight, everyone. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we don't give them a chance to retaliate," Morales ordered, her voice calm but firm through the comms. "We've got one shot at this, and we can't miss." The human squadron flew through the clouds, barely visible to the enemy radar. With each passing second, the tension mounted. As they approached the Vrix battleship, Morales' hands tightened on the controls. She could feel the weight of the mission pressing down on her, but she didn't flinch. The human will to survive burned in her chest, stronger than the fear that tried to claw at her. "Prepare to engage," she called out. "This is our moment." The squadron broke through the clouds, revealing the vast Vrix ship looming in the sky. The alien vessel, with its sleek, deadly form, seemed invincible. But as Morales' eyes scanned the ship, she saw it, the faint shimmer of weakness in the lower hull, just as their intelligence reports had said. It was a small gap, barely noticeable, but it was enough. "Lock on target. Fire at will," Morales shouted. The human pilots unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy blasts aimed precisely at the weak spot. The attack was swift and brutal, a well-timed strike that hit with the force of 1,000 punches. The Vrix battleship shuddered under the assault, its shields flickering as the missiles pierced its hull. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down as the ship groaned in protest. Then the explosion came. The blast was massive, a shockwave that sent ripples through the skies. The Vrix battleship, once a symbol of their dominance, was crippled, its engines disabled, its weapons silenced. The crew inside had no time to react. For the first time since the invasion began, the Vrix were on the back foot. The humans had struck a decisive blow, and the alien invaders were forced to retreat. But as Morales and her team pulled away, their hearts pounding with victory, they knew the battle wasn't over. Zorath still had the Devastator, and with it, the power to destroy entire continents in a single blast. The fight was far from won. Back in space, Zorath's anger had reached a boiling point. His fleet had suffered another blow, but this time, the damage was more than just physical. The Vrix had begun to lose their fear of the humans. The invaders had expected to break Earth's spirit with their superior firepower, but now they were the ones who were feeling the pressure. "We will end this," Zorath growled, his eyes burning with hatred. "Activate the Devastator and destroy them all." The final act of this war was about to unfold. Humanity had come this far through sheer willpower and resourcefulness. But the coming storm would test everything they had built, everything they had fought for, and Zorath's Devastator would be the ultimate challenge. As the alien warship, the Devastator powered up, its massive cannon charging with the energy to obliterate entire cities, the fate of Earth hung in the balance. Would humanity be able to turn the tide one last time? Or would the power of the Vrix be too much to overcome? The countdown had begun. The last stand. The explosion echoed through space and across the Earth's atmosphere, a signal of defiance. The once feared Vrix battleship, crippled by the human strike, plummeted into the Pacific Ocean. For a brief moment, the entire world held its breath, unsure whether the humans had done enough to turn the tide of the war. But General Carter, watching the aftermath unfold from his command center, knew this victory was only the beginning. The battle for Earth was far from over, and the real test was yet to come. The Vrix were not a species known for their mercy. They would retaliate with unimaginable force. On the Vrix flagship, Zorath stood silent, watching the feed of the destroyed battleship. The defeat had been crushing, but he wasn't ready to admit defeat. His species had conquered dozens of planets, and they would not be stopped by the resolve of a primitive species like humans. It was time to unleash the Devastator. The Vrix warship, the Devastator, was a marvel of destruction. It was capable of firing a beam so powerful that it could obliterate entire continents. Zorath had kept it in reserve, believing that humanity would crumble under the might of the Vrix forces before he would need to use it. But now, seeing the human ingenuity and courage firsthand, he knew that only one final blow would end the conflict once and for all. "Prepare the Devastator," Zorath commanded, his voice cold and calculating. "We will destroy their planet." As the massive warship powered up, a countdown began in the control room. Zorath's eyes narrowed as the energy levels of the Devastator spiked. He would bring Earth to its knees. Back on Earth, humanity's leadership scrambled to respond. The alien fleet had suffered losses, but Earth's resources were dwindling. The shield technology had been a game-changer, but it was not without its flaws. The Vrix had adapted to the humans' tactics, and soon they would be able to circumvent Earth's defenses once more. Captain Morales, who had become the face of humanity's resistance, now found herself in one of the most dangerous positions of her career. Her squadron was preparing for a final mission, one that would either ensure humanity's survival or seal its fate. They had discovered that the Devastator was the key to the Vrix's ultimate weapon. If they could disable or destroy the warship before it fired, the humans might have a fighting chance. "We know what we're up against," Morales said, addressing her team. "This is it. We stop the Devastator, or Earth doesn't survive. No pressure, right?" Her pilots chuckled nervously, but Morales could see the fire in their eyes. They knew the stakes, and they were ready to fight to the end. As the final mission took shape, the world's governments coordinated their efforts, launching every remaining fighter and weapon available. The humans had limited resources, but they had one thing the Vrix could not predict: desperation. The attack would be a last-ditch effort to infiltrate the heart of the Vrix fleet. Morales' squadron would lead the charge, diving straight into the heart of the Vrix's defensive perimeter, hoping to slip past their guards and disable the Devastator's power core. Meanwhile, Earth's ground forces launched simultaneous strikes on the alien bases, hoping to distract the Vrix long enough for the air assault to succeed. As the mission commenced, the Vrix fleet seemed almost indestructible. Their shields shimmered, and their warships moved with terrifying precision. But the humans were relentless. Morales and her squadron flew through a barrage of enemy fire, their planes dodging and weaving in a chaotic dance of life and death. Each fighter pilot knew that every moment could be their last, but none faltered. "Stay focused, stay sharp," Morales commanded over the comms. "We've got one shot at this. We don't make it, Earth's done." The squadron pushed deeper into the heart of the Vrix formation, missiles and energy blasts flying past them in every direction. The sheer size and power of the alien fleet seemed impossible to breach, but the humans had one advantage. They fought like their world depended on it, because it did. Then, through the chaos, Morales saw it: the Devastator. The warship loomed ahead, its immense size casting a shadow over the battlefield. Its energy beam was almost ready to fire. This was the moment. "Take out the power core," Morales shouted. "Focus everything on the center of the ship." The squadron turned, diving at breakneck speed toward the Devastator. They fired everything they had: missiles, bombs, lasers, anything that could breach the alien warship's defenses. But the Vrix weren't going down easily. Their shields flared up, and a deadly volley of energy blasts came their way. One by one, the human fighters began to fall, but Morales led the charge, determined to make every sacrifice count. "Push through, don't stop," she yelled as her plane zigzagged through enemy fire, heading directly for the warship's power core. The final moments felt like an eternity. As Morales' fighter locked onto the Devastator's power core, she unleashed a direct hit. The explosion was deafening, a brilliant flash of light that enveloped the warship. For a brief moment, everything went silent, and then the shockwave hit. The Devastator had been destroyed. Zorah's most powerful weapon was no more. But the price had been steep. Many pilots had given their lives in the assault, and the cost to Earth was immeasurable. Yet, humanity had proven something crucial that day. They could survive, they could fight, and they would never, ever give up. As the last remaining Vrix ships retreated, Commander Zoreth's face darkened with defeat. But for the first time in his long life, he had been forced to reckon with something he never thought possible. The humans weren't just resilient, they were formidable, and their fight wasn't over. The battle had been won, but the war for Earth had only just begun. The reckoning, the final assault on the Devastator had begun. The very air around Earth seemed to crackle with tension as humanity's last hope surged forward, guided by desperation and the indomitable will to survive. Captain Morales and her squadron led the charge, their fighter jets cutting through enemy lines like a blade through paper. Every pilot knew that this mission would determine the fate of the human race. There would be no second chances. "We're almost there, just a few more clicks," Morales shouted over the comms, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding her. The sleek Vrix warships loomed in the distance, massive and intimidating, their shields shimmering in the dark void of space. But Morales and her team didn't falter. They knew that if they could just disable the Devastator, If they could just breach its defenses long enough to plant their explosives, humanity's future could be secured. The alien fleet was relentless, but the humans were more determined than ever. Missiles screamed past Morales' cockpit, but she maneuvered with practiced precision, guiding her jet through a series of narrow gaps between Vrix ships. The strategy was simple: confuse the enemy, make them think you're everywhere, and then strike where they least expect it. Morales' heart raced as her team reached the core of the Vrix flagship. The moment of truth had arrived. The Devastator loomed ahead, its power core thrumming with deadly energy. But the Vrix were ready. The flagship's defensive shields flickered with an ominous glow, and its massive weapons trained on the incoming humans. Break formation. On my mark, fire everything we've got, Morales barked. The pilots split apart, scattering in all directions to avoid the incoming barrage of alien fire. In that moment of chaos, Morales' squadron fired everything they had: missiles, laser-guided bombs, and explosive charges into the heart of the Devastator. For a brief, agonizing second, it felt like time itself had frozen. Then the explosion came. A blinding flash of light erupted from the Vrix flagship as the first wave of missiles slammed into its shields, causing them to flicker and finally collapse under the barrage. The core of the Devastator was exposed. Morales' eyes widened as she saw the opening, and without hesitation, she guided her jet straight toward it. "Do it now," she screamed. The final charge, a missile armed with a pulse bomb designed to overload the core's energy system, plunged into the heart of the Devastator with a devastating roar. For a split second, everything went silent. Then came the shockwave. The explosion was unlike anything Morales had ever seen. A blinding, all-encompassing light swallowed the Devastator as the entire flagship detonated in a massive fireball. The Vrix flagship, once a symbol of their overwhelming power, was reduced to a smoldering wreck in the blink of an eye. Morales' squadron barely managed to evade the explosion, their jets tumbling and twisting through the shockwave. For a moment, she thought they were done. But against all odds, the humans had succeeded. The Devastator was no more. The alien fleet, thrown into disarray by the destruction of their flagship, faltered. Zora's command ship shuddered under the force of the blast. His heart sank as he watched his prized warship disintegrate before his eyes. The humans had done the impossible, but Zorath was not one to surrender easily. "Launch all remaining ships. We will not yield. We will wipe them out," Zorath growled through clenched teeth, his gaze burning with fury. But the damage had already been done. With the Vrix flagship gone, the chain of command had fractured. The remaining Vrix ships scattered in disarray, unsure of how to proceed without their leader. The humans, sensing their opportunity, launched a final coordinated strike that pushed the invaders into retreat. The human resistance had dealt a devastating blow. Back on Earth, the sound of victory echoed through the streets. Humanity's forces, emboldened by the loss of their greatest enemy weapon, surged forward in a final push against the remaining Vrix forces. The invaders, once so confident, were now on the run. General Carter, watching from his command center, allowed himself a rare moment of relief. "We've done it," he whispered. "They're retreating." The remaining Vrix ships, now leaderless and shattered, had no choice but to abandon their invasion. The fleet, which had once loomed over Earth like an unstoppable force, turned tail and fled, their ships disappearing into the depths of space. In the aftermath, Earth began to heal. The scars of war were deep, and the losses were great. Cities had been decimated, and countless lives had been lost. But the victory was sweet, for it proved something to every person on the planet. Humanity had survived. Against all odds, they had fought back an empire far beyond their power and had won. As the alien ships retreated, Captain Morales and her team looked toward Earth, their home, knowing that their world had been forever changed. But as they flew back through the atmosphere, the message was clear to every human watching. The Vrix had underestimated the one thing no enemy could ever fully conquer: human willpower. And humanity, after facing extinction, had proven it would never give up.